Hey everybody, good afternoon. It's Tuesday, 12:45, so we're going live for Ask Me Anything. Today we're going to talk about CBD, vitamin C, lactose intolerance, sugar, iodine, and I think that's it. If you have friends who have questions about any of these categories, this is a great opportunity to send this video to them because I'm going to give you a different way to think about all of these things and a very important way for everybody to understand all of these. I'm actually going to start with the vitamin C question. I was trying to keep up on what's going on through social media, and I keep getting good morning texts coming up in my feed, and it's, you know, different local businesses getting on there. And I saw one that said holistic health, and it was tagged as holistic health, and I thought, okay, this is interesting. I want to know about holistic health. And when I watched it, this was not holistic health. It is a company that is alternative and looking at different things, but they're using things like vitamin C injections, vitamin C IV therapy. There is nothing holistic about a vitamin C injection. Holistic means you're looking at everything and how the body utilizes it, and it's much more with respect to nature. There's nowhere in the world you're going to have that type of exposure to vitamin C in nature. And my caution when people go to do something like that is typically we see that create more of a vitamin C deficiency. We talked about this all last month with inflammation and really understanding the importance of a whole food vitamin C and how that affects your whole vasculature system. All of your veins, all of them need this vitamin C, whole food vitamin C, to repair and rebuild them so that you do not have inflammatory problems that are due to a breakdown in them. Now, ascorbic acid is simply the antioxidant shell. It is not the entire vitamin C as it occurs in nature. In fact, the gentleman who discovered vitamin C learned this later when he tried to cure his friend's scurvy, and he could not cure it because it didn't have what he called the P factors from the paprika that he added back into it. That is like the rutin factors, the bioflavonoids, all of these that are essential for the whole thing to function as a whole. Now there are other factors, and there's vitamin J factor, vitamin K, and there's a copper factor that is an enzyme form. So when you find this in nature, you're getting all of those things very different than just getting ascorbic acid. So I really want to just be careful with that term holistic. And be careful when you hear somebody say something's natural or holistic. They're taking these terms and they're applying them things that I would not qualify as holistic. Holistic care requires a lot more investigation and deep thought and understanding the entire system as opposed to just throwing one thing in there that is going to try to force a function because it's a high dose. High dose typically means it's outside of what you would find in nature. Now, in nature, 100 milligrams of vitamin C is pretty much the most you're going to find, ascorbic acid. Now, even though the FDA says that ascorbic acid is vitamin C, this is where we get this confusion. We get so many people looking at their labels and they're seeing ascorbic acid on there, and it's not the whole enchilada, and it's going to create a deficit in those other ingredients in the enchilada. So make sure you're getting a whole food vitamin C. We're talking about this because ascorbic acid does have purposes, and we have a lot of people who are interested in trying to figure out how to balance their halogens. Those are your iodines versus your bromine and your chlorine and those other halides. So a lot of times in your shower, you get a lot of chlorine coming in. The municipal water has chlorine in it to help kill off viruses and bacteria, but you don't necessarily want to be bathing in that every day because your body doesn't really need that amount, okay? And it can be very harsh on your skin. It can deplete your iodine because they're very similar. So I have people asking, well, how much vitamin C should I put in my 250-gallon hot tub on a daily basis? I don't want to become iodine depleted. It's an interesting question. In fact, when I do take a bath, that's what I use those emergency packets for. They're ascorbic acid. They're 1,000 milligrams of ascorbic acid. Now, do I know absolutely that this is neutralizing all the chlorine in there? No. But what I do know is that one gram of ascorbic acid will neutralize 1 milligram per liter per 100 gallons of water. So for me, that's 3 packets in 250 gallons that is going to help neutralize a lot of that. You got to wait about 4 minutes for it to really neutralize. Now, do you want to err on the side to make sure that you're getting more? Go ahead and put more in there. But that will at least neutralize a lot of the chlorine that's in there. And I'll put some links below where you're going to see the information that is showing that ascorbic acid will help neutralize that chlorine for you. But I hope that answers your question about that. I would do about 3 packets for 250 gallon, but you might want to just double it just to be safe, because that's not going to hurt you. The question about asking for a friend. There are any specific supplements to help with lactose intolerance? Good question, Dr. Valerie. So lactose, when we think about it, is a sugar. So what are we missing that is helping us to digest a sugar should be the question. And why would we have a problem with that? And of course, your pancreas comes into play with that. So supporting the pancreas is going to be really important. It's really upsetting when you start hearing about all these people who are having pancreatic issues, pancreatic insufficiency, inability to utilize insulin resistance. All of these things have to do with a weak organ, and you really have to strengthen that pancreas, because the pancreas is going to help you with those. So we have to think about what are the things that your pancreas needs. And one of the things that we never talk about is chromium. Chromium is a really important nutritional factor for the pancreas to stay healthy. There's a lot more you can do to strengthen that pancreas, and I would definitely focus on making sure you're doing everything you can to strengthen that. But the other thing is your microbiome is going to play into that too. You have to have certain bacteria to help you digest sugar. So it's not just one thing, right? There's multiple aspects, and that's why we have so many people that are struggling with lactose digestion. A lot of times you'll see a huge correlation between people who either they weren't breastfed or their mother wasn't breastfed, so they didn't receive a lot of the bacteria in that process that would be helpful for what? Digesting breast milk, right? So you have the milk sugar, lactose, that is going to be a part of that, so your body needs those probiotics to be able to do that. Now, it's not always going to be the case, because there could be pancreatic insufficiency. So that's not the only 2 things, but those are the 2 areas that I would focus on strengthening if I were struggling with lactose intolerance. And you're asking me, is there a supplement? Well, there are ways to strengthen your microbiome specific to those. And one of my favorites that I have seen a lot of success with in people who struggle with lactose or who get bloated after eating ice cream and things like that is Lactens. And Lactens does give you those probiotics to be able to help you with the lactose digestion, but it also gives you something called lactic acid yeast, which is super important for creating the right environment. We think too much about just replacing the probiotics when they're not there, but we're not thinking enough about creating the environment to sustain those probiotics. So again, that's holistic thinking. Thinking about how does the whole system get to where it's supporting all of this. And we want to start with making sure that the environment is right so that we can do what our body needs to do. Just like creating a healthy environment in the pancreas is going to help your pancreas get back to the business of creating those enzymes. I know that's a really big answer to that question, but the answer is overall, yes, there's always something you can do to strengthen the body. It's just determining where the weakness is and why there's a weakness there and how to be able to strengthen it and get it back to where you're going. That's the total opposite of just dumping a bunch of ascorbic acid through an IV into your veins and calling that holistic health. Holistic health is very different from that. So yes, I'm a little heated by seeing that, because it really dilutes what holistic health truly is when you start to throw things like that in that category. You have to do everything with respect to nature when you're thinking holistically. Okay, someone is trying to avoid sugar and they want to know if they can have grapefruit. It's a good question. So back to the vitamin C thing, grapefruit does have some vitamin C in it, so do oranges, but it's not the best because there is a lot of sugar in there. If you are having too much insulin, that is going to actually inhibit your body's ability to draw the vitamin C into the cell and actually utilize the vitamin C as well. Insulin resistance can also lead to a vitamin C deficiency. So there's a lot of things that are causing the need for people to have tons and tons more vitamin C. So grapefruit would be okay, but I would prefer that you were eating like bell peppers, foods that aren't going to be really high in sugar but high in vitamin C. And peppers, all kinds of peppers are going to be great. Now, if it's just because you're trying to avoid sugar because you're trying to keep your weight off, or if you're trying to not, spike in insulin, a little bit of grapefruit is not going to be terrible because it has all of those vitamins in there as well as the fiber that comes with it. But it wouldn't be my first choice. I love grapefruit, I love grapefruit juice, but I do eat it very rarely because it does have a little bit higher sugar to it. And of course, all of you know out there, if you're taking certain medications, sometimes grapefruit will have an effect on the liver that tells you you can't take those. So another thing to think about when it comes to that. Okay, so that's vitamin C, that's the iodine, that is the lactose and the sugar, and finally CBD oil. Thank you, Dr. Ashley, for the question. Of course, we have tons of questions about CBD. In fact, we're creating an infographic here to share with people to make it a little bit easier to understand. But it goes back to, again, the whole food version of it, the holistic approach of it. When we start to take CBD and try to bring out the active component or distill it down to just this part or that part, we're not going to get the same response that we would get as it occurs in nature. And so there is an endocannabinoid system, and what it does is it helps to create homeostasis in the body. It helps to balance things out, calm you down, and it can be very helpful to engage that endocannabinoid system. Other things are going to do that too, things like echinacea, and actually even in carrots there's a little bit of little endocannabinoids in there. So when you are eating these foods, you're getting a little bit. When you're eating something like a CBD oil, you're giving it a lot. So be very careful whether it is something that's giving you all of the pieces of it, so that you're not just getting a synthetic isolated portion of it, or even just an isolated portion of it. Make sure you're getting the whole thing. I think it can be very helpful to calm people down and good. It's natural for the body to have an engagement in the endocannabinoid system. Now, be careful of the THC. THC is the thing that people get worried about because that's what's usually going to be found when people are doing things from a marijuana source. They're getting the CBD and the THC, and of course the THC is one that we want to keep out of the picture because it's just not good for business. So I hope that answers your question, guys. Please keep those questions coming. I know this was a lot of information, really rapid fire, but the takeaway is always remember, when it's a holistic approach, you really have to take in consideration all of the factors. If you're doing ascorbic acid, that is not a holistic approach because it isn't the whole vitamin. You need the whole thing as it occurs in nature to truly be respectful of that. If you're just doing ascorbic acid, you can create a severe deficiency in those other things and actually create a very bad state in your body because you're pushing something that is not occurring in nature all by itself. Okay? Hope that's helpful, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week when we do another